Back in 1999, Capcom released Resident Evil 3 for the original PlayStation. It was a great title that sold enough copies to warrant a sequel and a remake 20 years down the road. Capcom enlisted Resident Evil 2 director Hideki Kamiya to once again return to the series and make Resident Evil 4. But as development went on, Kamiya felt restricted by the pre-established mechanics and fundamentals of the Resident Evil franchise. It was producer Shinji Mikami who convinced Kamiya and the rest of the development team to create an entirely new IP. Kamiya wanted to make a cool action game that rewards you for being as stylish as possible. He would take inspiration from the 1982 anime Cobra as inspiration for the main character and just whatever Kamiya thought was cool at the time. Tony Redgrave was to be the protagonist of Resident Evil 4. He was a sword-wielding cop who was the son of Oswald Spencer. This plotline would later be reused for the Wesker children in Resident Evil 6. But Tony Redgrave was reworked into the wacky Wahoo pizza man that we know today as Dante.
Whoa, slow down, babe.
The original Devil May Cry was released in one of the greatest years in gaming history, 2001. I say it's one of the greatest just due to the amounts of games released this year. Grand Theft Auto 3, Max Payne, Halo Combat Evolved, SmackDown Just Bring It. Wait, no, that game's ass. Anyway, DMC1's a good game. That should be played if you're a fan of the character action genre. Hell, this is kind of the game that pretty much invented that genre. Devil May Cry would go on to inspire games like God of War, Darksiders, and arguably Bayonetta. So I've never played Bayonetta personally, and I plan to sometime this year. I was gonna play it anyway, but if you guys want me to review it, let me know down in the comments. Kamiya wanted the gameplay to feature stylish combat with the same gothic themes as Resident Evil. Thanks to the HD collection, we were able to take a look at some of the in-game characters' designs. Dante was mostly kept the same with some slight tweaks, but it was the same formula. Trish, however, went through a lot of redesigns before she ultimately got the design that she would get in the final game and for the rest of the series. Now, with the game itself, it's pretty good. I was expecting it to feel really stiff and clunky with it being an over 20-year-old game, but it doesn't, and that's a great thing, honestly. Combos can be pulled off, but I found that the intricate combos seen in later games can't really be pulled off here. And if they can be, please do let me know down in the comments, and I will admit that I have a skill issue. DMC1 does use the old school fixed camera, and it's at its worst here. Combined with the auto-targeting, it can ruin a lot of combat encounters or just make you miss timed jumps. And that's a good segue into one of the things that DMC1 lacks at, the platforming. I know it's terrible, you know it's terrible, and your mama's mama knows it's terrible. Platforming has never been a strong suit of this series. I would say that DMC5 and the reboot were the only DMC games that had decent to well platforming. Just my opinion. Combined with the fixed camera, it's not a good experience, all things considered. I was able to get through the platform without too much hassle, so, you know, okay, good for me, but doesn't change the fact it's not a good gameplay mechanic. I would assume if this game got an HD remake, and I'm not talking about the collection, I mean like an actual graphical remaster, the platforming would be reworked to be a lot more easier for modern day controls. There's also some terrible underwater sections that just don't need to be here, for all things considered. The first person is a nice touch, I like that, but the controls will make it terrible. The controls are inverted and it just makes it uncomfortable as hell. They're not as bad as the platforming. They last about 30 seconds most of the time, so it's quick, it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's like maybe 3 times you have to do it in the entire game, so it's not that bad. The bosses in Devil May Cry 1 are lacking in a good way. There's only 5 bosses, being Phantom, Nello Angelo, Griffin, Nightmare, and the final boss Mundus. You fight each boss a total of 3 times, with a few being optional, like after fighting Phantom in Mission 4, literally the next mission he chases you and his health bar appears. You can fight him or risk dying, or you can be a pussy like me and walk through the door and leave him hanging. Nello Angelo is the next boss fight, and his first encounter is honestly my favorite in the entire game. He fights similar in moveset to Dante and is overall well done. Sadly, this is the only time I beat Nello legit. A lot of the bosses did give me trouble, and thankfully Capcom made this wonderful invention called Holy Water for trash players like myself, so I ended up relying on Holy Waters a lot. I can confidently say that the bosses are fairly hard and difficult, but they're not bullshit hard. When I died to a boss, I knew it was because I made the mistake, which is always a good. You never want to have a bullshit boss. Cough cough Sanctus from DMC4. In Nello's third and final encounter, he reveals himself to be Virgil. At the end of DMC3, Virgil remains trapped in the demon world, and DMC1 takes place about 10 or so years after 3, so that explains what our old brother's been up to. The Griffin boss fights aren't terrible. His first boss encounter is mainly a range battle, just shooting grenades at him to deal damage. His second boss fight, however, is terrible, and I hate it. It's on a pirate ship, and he's got the high ground, and to be completely fair, I probably should have bought Air Raid, so that's more on me, but I just ended up spamming Holy Waters to win. Griffin's third and final encounter is far better, and it's in this giant coliseum, which for the scenery is really good. So there's a lot more open space. He doesn't have an annoying attack that propels you upwards this time, and the fight went a lot better. I think I did it legit, actually. Nightmare is a nightmare. I am not a fan of this boss. Is it mechanically terrible? No, but I was never a fan of the whole cut the lights on to damage the boss gimmick. DMC3 did that with the Doppelganger boss, and it's also terrible. I won't sit here and complain too much about Nightmare just because in reality a lot of it is just me being bad at the game. If you couldn't tell, I had the least amount of time with DMC1, only beating this game once on an emulator. And it was a bullshit playthrough because I just unlocked everything and cheated. But this time I did it on PlayStation, it was a legit playthrough. Nightmare's third fight is arguably the worst one in the game. Nightmare can only be damaged by turning on the lights and attacking his two cores. Thankfully I was able to beat it in about 3 or so tries. During the fight, Trish actually turns heel and attacks, and it's like, wow, the mysterious woman who drove through our office and attacked us is evil. Who'da thunk it? After the power of Holy Water, Dante saves Trish and refuses to kill her.
Dante, why did you save my life?
Because you look like my mother. Now get out of my sight. The next time we meet, it won't be like this.
Dante!
Don't come any closer, you devil! You may look like my mother, but you're nowhere close to her. You have no soul. You have the face, but you'll never have her fire! And so do I.
Finally, the showdown with Mundus happens. Dante and Mundus monologue for a little bit, and then Mundus kills Trish. Now, this is a boss fight, the final boss of the game. It's a multi-stage boss fight, and I actually like this first stage. It reminds me a lot of a space shooter. And it's pretty fun. You gotta build up your double trigger before you can attack them, and then you shoot this big ass dragon out. It's pretty fun and cool, actually. Cool concept. Then there's the actual boss fight, and it's arguably here with the platforming is the worst. If we're being fair, shame on me for not getting all the possible blue orbs. But I hate it when I would mistime my jumps and land in lava. Apart from the platforming being trash, this is actually a solid boss fight, all things considered. After defeating Mundus, Dante returns to Trish's body and gives us one of the greatest lines in video game history, and if you tell me otherwise, lose my number.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
The game ends with a big backtrack section with a self-destruct timer like it's Resident Evil. And after getting back to the main area where you first started the game, Mundus makes one final attempt to kill Dante, and he's a cakewalk. Like, he takes so much damage, it's not even funny. Trish somehow comes back from the dead and helps Dante. Game ends with this small little section where you gotta fly a plane out the castle, shoot some rocks and shit out the way, and then that's game. It ends with Dante and Trish working together, and that's game. DMC1's influence can be seen in a lot of games today, I feel like. It holds up very well, which I honestly was not expecting it to. I'm glad that I had a good time with this game, and even though it's got its garbage platforming sections, it's a very well made game. And that's why I gotta give the final verdict for Devil May Cry an 8 out of 10. Now, before we conclude this video, I'd like to briefly talk about DMC2. I said I wasn't going to review it, and then a friend of mine convinced me to, so I was like, you know what? I'll give it a chance. I'll go through without knowing it's shit. So I played the game for about an hour and so, and after that hour I was like, you know what? I'm good. I don't think I could add anything to the video itself. Everybody knows it's a dog shit game. Anyway, I will have one more DMC related video coming out, and afterwards I'll be moving on to the SmackDown vs. Raw series voted by the people in my Discord server. If you'd like to join the server, the link is down in the description, and if the link is tripping saying it's not working, then just let me know and I'll put a pinned comment. Anyway, peace.